Good morning, everyone. I want to begin by acknowledging that we're on Treaty 1 territory in the traditional homeland of the Red River Métis. Thank you for being here today. As you're aware, yesterday, the City of Winnipeg announced an order that was issued to the property owner at 2440 Portage Avenue to immediately vacate the building due to unsafe structural conditions. This decision was not made lightly. Our priority is the safety and the well-being of tenants who live in the building. And my heart goes out to the residents of Birchwood Terrace. This is an emotional and difficult time for many of them. I was by the apartment building this morning, and it was a steady stream of residents carrying their belongings to their vehicles and to moving trucks. Winnipeg Fire Paramedic and Winnipeg Police were on scene assisting residents. I stopped by the reception center that the City of Winnipeg has set up in the Holiday Inn just west of the apartment building. And city staff have been on site through the night assisting residents and had helped just over 50 people by 8:45 this morning. And that reception center remains up and operational, and in a moment you'll hear more from our Deputy Chief. We recognize that this is an unexpected situation for the residents, and I want to assure you that the City of Winnipeg will continue to support you in any way that we can as you navigate this challenging time. The City will continue to work closely with the property owner to address the unsafe conditions and ensure the safety of all residents. Again, I emphasize it's the safety of residents that is the priority at this time. We understand the disruption and the uncertainty that this evacuation can cause for you and your families, and we're committed to providing the necessary supports. Please know that city staff are working diligently to ensure that you and your families get the information you need and are supported through this process. I want to thank our city staff. I want to thank the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service, the Winnipeg Police Service, and our other emergency response teams that are in place and are managing the situation and are working with individuals throughout this time. I'm now going to pass it over to Jay Shaw, the Deputy Chief of Emergency Management and Public Information, to provide further information and details on the situation, and then after that, we'll take your questions. Thank you. Deputy Chief Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jay Shaw, and I'm the Deputy Chief of Safety, Emergency Management and Public Information for the City of Winnipeg. Yesterday, the City of Winnipeg issued an emergency order to the property owners of 2440 Portage Avenue to immediately vacate their building because of an unsafe structural condition. The building was recently inspected by consultants on behalf of the property owner. Over the course of their inspection, they uncovered severe deterioration of the building structure. We were notified of the issues, and under the building bylaw and emergency management bylaw, we took steps to issue a vacate order because the building is not safe to occupy at present. Requirements under the order given to the property order include immediate vacating and ceasing of occupancy of the property, prohibiting entry to the property until it is determined by the city that it is safe to enter, ensuring continuous 24/7 monitoring of the property, and immediate advising of the city of any changes in the structural stability of the property. This morning, city officials started going door to door to let tenants know that they needed to vacate the building. We have established a reception center at the Holiday Inn Airport West at 2520 Portage Avenue to assist residents. The city's emergency social services teams are there presently and will help connect residents with available resources and supports. The decision to vacate was necessary to ensure the safety of the approximate 250 residents who reside in the building's 171 suites. This order was issued to prevent a potential disaster. City officials have gone door to door advising residents in the neighborhood properties that they are on an evacuation watch. As part of the evacuation watch, they are being asked to prepare to evacuate if and when the structural condition of the apartment building requires it. It is expected that the city will ensure further orders to the it is expected that the city will issue further orders to the property owner regarding the specific actions it must take to address the unsafe conditions. it will be up to the owner to complete the repairs necessary for reoccupying the building. The city does not have any timelines on this process currently. At this time, we can take questions.
What is the problem with the building? Is it something to do with the parkade?
So currently, what I'm being told is the columns that support the building are structurally unsound. I'm not an engineer and I don't have the technical details. That question might be better, might be able to get you some more information on that one. But it is to do with the structural integrity of the columns of the building that support the weight of the load.
Is there a fear that the building could collapse
That is the fear.
right now?
The fear right now is that, and I won't use the word the fear, the concern right now is that the structural engineers have advised us that the building potentially is unsafe due to the structural integrity of those columns. And their recommendation from a life and safety perspective is to evacuate the building.
Is it gonna be repaired?
The deterioration?
Sorry, one more?
I'm sorry, just one more. Now, I guess it's a little early to ask, but is the plan to repair whatever is ailing that building, or could that building face possible demolition?
That would be a question for the building owners. I don't have that information. Go ahead.
Sir, what caused the deterioration, or do you have
At this
any
point, I
idea?
don't know. What I can tell you is that the engineering firm and the building ownership have been working over the last several days to be able to come to the conclusion, and then that, from that perspective, contacted the city, and that's when we took action.
When did the city tell the residents to evacuate exactly, like what time?
At 7:30 last night, we gave the direction to the building owners that they were required to evacuate their tenants from their building that they own.
Okay. And why was the deadline set so soon after that at 8 AM?
So I think there's a little bit of misinformation in terms of deadlines. The evacuation order is immediate, but as you know, it takes time for individuals to gather their belongings and remove their belongings so that they can permanently evacuate the building until we get further information from the engineering company.
So
When
what-
was the, sorry, when was the going door to door? Was that today?
At 8 AM this morning, a task force team of police officers and members of the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service, Winnipeg Fire Department, entered the building and started knocking on doors to help and assist residents with the evacuation.
Is the owner of the building being cooperative with the city's request at this point?
The owner of the building thus far with us has been absolutely fantastic.
Can you tell us who the owner is?
I don't have the exact name of the building owners, but I think that information we can provide you after.
Do you know how long or how old, Jay, that building is?
I don't. I'm going to say it's in the 1960s era, but I don't have the exact date of construction.
How common are these types of orders in the city of Winnipeg? Does this happen often?
This is the first one that I've been aware of that's come under my purview as the head of emergency management, where we've had to evacuate a building from a structural potential. There's been others where, fire bylaws, things of that nature, but this is due to a structural issue that engineers found.
And how long have you been in your current post? How long are
I-
we talking about?
I've been with the city for 22 years and the head of the Office of Emergency Management since 2016.
And this is the first kind of incident that you've dealt with, particularly?
With the potential building structural collapse.
Oh,
Do you know when the last time the building was inspected?
I do not. Building owners are responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of their own buildings. At present, right now, we're gathering information to see if the city of Winnipeg has any more details on inspections of that nature.
So what are the exact safety risks? You said collapse was one of them. Were there other risks as well? Or is that-
Collapse of the building is the biggest, and what that would look like. The engineers are unsure about how or what that would look like. Therefore, their recommendation was to evacuate the building as soon as possible.
If these people weren't evacuated, would you say there might be an imminent threat to their well-being, to their lives?
I would say that that's what the engineers' report said, and we're following up on that exact notion that the engineers are currently stating that there's a threat to life and safety because the building, under the engineers' report, is that the building is unstable.
Mayor Gillingham, maybe a question for you, if you'd be so kind. Your Deputy Chief of Emergency Management had said that this was a potential disaster that was essentially mitigated by this evacuation. Do you have any concerns that it got to this point, that this wasn't caught earlier, that this wasn't noticed earlier? Any concerns about that, sir?
Our staff acted on the information when they received it from the property owner, who was working with an engineering firm, and the engineering firm contacted our staff. Our staff, I appreciate, moved into action immediately to put measures in place. This happens to be Emergency Preparedness Week. That's why we have Deputy Chief Jay Shaw. That's why we have our entire team that's ready for these inevitable situations, and they spend a lot of time preparing, a lot of time getting ready, running case scenarios. What if this happens? What if that happens? And so I'm grateful that today they're organized, they're mobilized with all the partners, the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service, police, other groups, like Red Cross. We've been in dialogue with the province, just so that we can make sure the safety of our residents is priority number one.
Mr. Mayor, is there a concern there could be other buildings in the city in a similar boat?
Well, as Deputy Chief said, ultimately it's up to property owners to maintain their properties. This was caught through the property owner having an engineer in inspecting their property. So, we talk a lot. I've been here talking a lot about buildings in our city that we want to make sure are maintained well, and property owners have a responsibility to ensure that their properties are in safe condition and maintained. And so, I would imagine if I was a property owner and reading, the news today and watching the news today, I'd be thinking about my building and the last time it was inspected. So let's make sure all properties are in good condition.
Is there going to be any proactive steps taken by the city to make sure that building owners are inspecting their properties?
Yeah, it's too soon to say, I think, at this point, what changes may come. I think, what we need to remember is that we do have our bylaw officers. We do have, there are requirements for individuals to make sure that they maintain their buildings when they're building or renovating, to be taking out permits. I don't think that's the case here. But my point is, the city of Winnipeg does have bylaws and policies and processes in place to ensure that properties are built well, and it's up to property owners to make sure they're maintaining their buildings.
For the residents of the neighboring
Oh,
homes.
sorry.
The neighboring buildings are on evacuation watch. Is that due to the risk of this building collapsing and affecting them? Or is that maybe it was built at the same time with the same kind of materials?
So generally speaking, when we look at a building and the potential for a building collapse, we look at a larger area to be able to determine what the risk factors are. Based off of those, rough calculations, we wanted to put the residents on the street, I believe it's Assiniboine Avenue, just south of the building, on an emergency watch. Because we don't have full information regarding what the engineers are going to do next, it was considered to us to be a risk factor that we wanted to mitigate. And to do that, we advised those individuals living in those homes, it's about 30 to 40 homes along that stretch, that they were going to be placed under an emergency alert watch. And what that means is we're asking them to be diligent and listen and be prepared in case something happens with that building, once it's evacuated, that we would be able to quickly and efficiently go to them and evacuate them if needed. So right now, there is no need for them to evacuate, but we did need to put them on notice because of the sheer caution.
Can you just go over
We
again?
talked about this a little bit, but what's your message to the people who have been directly affected? I think the number was roughly 250, about how the city is going to support them through probably what is the hardest moment in their life so far.
To reiterate, my heart goes out to the residents of Birchwood Terrace. This is a very emotional time, a very disruptive time. I mean, can any of us, put ourselves in their situation, just imagine what it would be like to get a knock on the door to say, you've got to gather your belongings, you need to move, you need to leave. And so our city staff has the reception center set up. We're here to assist residents, and that reception center, either in that location or some other location, will be there as long as it's needed so that we're assisting our residents.
Now, will this evacuation order just be personal property, or do you want them to vacate their suites? I'm just wondering if we're asking people.
I'll turn that to the
move
deputy chief.
everything out.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'll turn that to the deputy chief.
So currently, right now, we gave the evacuation over at 7:30 last night. At 0800 this morning, we started a door knocking process to be able to have police and fire paramedic service staff communicate in a respectful way to start getting residents, if they had not been given the orders yet, to start the process to evacuate. The intelligence that I've been given by police and fire thus far is that the residents have been very cooperative and they're doing their best to evacuate as quick as possible. Because of the nature of this evacuation, where the building may be uninhabitable for approximately several months, we're looking at residents that want to take as many of their belongings as possible. So what we're allowing right now is those residents to get their belongings out as fast as possible, but we are looking at creating a system where we start the process of locking down the building over the next 24 to 36 hours to be able to close out the building and make sure that the building is emptied.
So still no idea when they might move back in? Is there a chance they might never move back in?
I would say that would be a question for the building engineers once they do more of an assessment to be able to determine the core state. Like I said, at present, we're doing this based off of an engineering report that they believe that the building is structurally unsafe.
And is the city able to connect all of the residents with housing? I know there's a reception center, but I don't know if you have a supply to help so many people at once.
So the building owner will be having a meeting with their tenants at the reception center today. We are also providing supports and doing an assessment to work with those residents to be able to help them where needed. We have clinicians and medical people at the reception center, and we are going to do our best to connect those folks with proper supports.
Would some of them stay at the hotel? Is that why it's at the hotel?
In some circumstances, based on the assessment, the city may put some of the tenants up in a hotel. But an assessment process has to happen based on the level of need. And like I said, as the Mr. Mayor said right here, our heart breaks for these individuals. This is extremely stressful. And what I've seen so far is a calm demeanor and people systematically going through the process of trying to, remove their belongings, and they're doing it respectfully and carefully and in a calm manner at this point. And I want to thank them for that because I understand how stressful this is.
What services are available for residents at the reception center?
So right now, it's about our emergency social services team. There's mental health supports there. It's about communication and what the next steps are to be able to connect with the building owner, right? The building owner is responsible for the tenants, and we are doing our absolute best to make sure that all those connections are happening.
How do you assess the level of need for tenants?
So we have an amazing emergency social services team that is able to do assessments just through interview processes and talking with individuals and working with them based on what their individual needs are.
Does the building owner also own that hotel?
I do not know.
Would there be any chances for folks to come back to get more of their belongings, or is that too dangerous? Like, should they expect to not be?
I
with
would
for quite
say
some time?
right now, I don't have that information. It is plausible, though, that after the engineers do more inspection, that they may be able to provide more information on what that looks like.
Sir, did you happen to actually see the report that was published by the engineers, or that was brought forward by the engineers? And if so, was there any visual, visuals offered or put forward in that report that show columns that have large cracks or deteriorating signs of wear?
So I have read the engineer's report. I have not seen any visuals at this point. The second we were notified, we operated our emergency operations center, and we started our planning section and operations section to start the process of understanding what we needed to get accomplished to be able to safely and effectively start the evacuation process.
There's no danger of, sorry, I keep interrupting, Joanne. There's no danger to the hotel at the reception center. It's not within that sort of danger zone?
No.
That's okay. Just on the, was there some kind of construction happening, or do you know anything about what sort of caused this problem?
I don't.
Okay.
No.
And I think you said earlier the city hasn't really had to evacuate an apartment block, or was it any building before due to structural
Well, we've
issues like this?
evacuated buildings before, absolutely, but this is my first knowledge of a potential structural collapse of a 5-story large tenant building.
Okay. Is that any building, or just of one this size?
I think what I'm trying to tell you, Joanne, is that this is my first time in my position where there's been a potential of a structural collapse with this many tenants in a building where we had to evacuate it.
Okay. And I heard something about maybe that the city would have to change the locks to prevent people from returning and reduce that risk of them returning to apartments. Is that?
So that wouldn't be the
accurate?
city, that would be the building owner.
Oh, okay. And do you know, like, what started all this, was that a routine inspection, or was it ordered because, or sought because of some problems that they noticed?
I don't know. What I can tell you is that the city was notified by the engineering firm and the building owners about this imminent threat, and the city acted immediately once we recognized what the situation was.
So were you notified yesterday?
We activated our emergency operations center yesterday. I think the city was notified end of day, May 7th, that there was a problem, and phone calls and meetings started happening immediately after that.
How many people involved in a response like this? And this would be my final question.
A good question. How many people? So we have, 45 people that operate in the emergency operations center when we're activated, and we've had, dozens of police, fire, EMS folks, and with our emergency social services team. So it's been a large activation.
I imagine the emergency response people go through drills and such. Is there ever been a scenario presented in the drills such as this, or is this something that you're kind of, I don't want to say doing it on the fly, but as in doing it on the fly? I guess.
So we do look at disasters all across and emergency situations all across North America and the world, and we do exercise and practice all the time. And we have talked about scenarios of evacuations and building collapses before. As you may recall, we had a large fire, the Pounder emulsion fire, several years ago. That's an example where there might have been a large-scale evacuation. So the Emergency Operations Center in the City of Winnipeg, with support of council, is a robust emergency operation plan. And what we do is we practice and we try and prepare for all plausible types of scenarios. So this would be one that we would have talked about and discussed.
So someone sort of started to ask about this, but I wasn't super clear on the answer. Does the city think that this failure, this type of issue, could happen in a lot of similar buildings? There are a lot of similar buildings in that area.
I think that's more of a question for technical experts in engineering. I don't have that information at hand.
Are you aware of what the building structural inspection cycle might be?
So I don't have that information, and the building owners are responsible for making sure that they take care of the structural integrity of their buildings.
So you're not aware if buildings are required like every 2 years or 5 years or yearly to have their structures inspected?
So we're currently looking at all that information right now and pulling up any case history regarding 2440 Portage Avenue. I don't have any of that information right now.
Obviously, you wouldn't know when the last city inspection on this building was, or do you know when the last city inspection?
I don't currently, but city inspections would most likely be more along the lines of fire inspections and things of that nature. But like I said, we're just taking a look right now at everything regarding 2440 Portage Avenue.
Would city, that brings up a question, like, would the city even be required to do structural inspections of this type of building? Like,
Yeah.
if it's left up to the owners, is it
Yeah.
not even something the city ever does?
Yeah, so I think we'll be able to provide more information on that, but building owners are responsible for the integrity and the structures of their buildings.
And I mean, there was no, I don't think this was, I probably don't remember every single building that's ever come up in an inspection report with the city, but I don't think this one, from what we've seen so far, was that. It wasn't like there was issues and orders in the past, or was there?
Yeah, like I said, we're currently going through everything with 2440 and looking at all the inspection history. I don't have any information on any inspection history presently.
Were there any permits taken out recently for construction work on this property?
These are all the questions that we're trying to ascertain right now in terms of the history over the last 30, 60, 90 days about anything that we know about 2440. Currently, right now, based like what we said, this is a life safety event where we've taken steps to prevent a tragedy or a disaster of a possible building collapse, and that's why we evacuated the building.
Any further questions?
When do you have, I know 8 AM wasn't the deadline, that was when you started door knocking, but is there a hard deadline for when people have to be out?
Right now, we're working operationally with the Fire Paramedic Service, the Winnipeg Police, and the Office of Emergency Management to start the process of the next steps. Like I said, tenants have been very cooperative, and the building is being emptied currently. The next steps are to make sure that the building has been cleared and to make sure that all residents have vacated the premises. And then we start to follow up on the orders that we've been giving in terms of making sure that the building owner takes possession of the building, keeps it safe, locks the doors, starts that process of making sure that it's protected so the engineers can do their work.
How long will the reception center process go on for? Like, do you expect it to take days to sort of find accommodations and assess
So my hope is over today, we're going to see the majority of the individuals that come to the reception center to register. There are a lot of people with strong abilities to self-care. They may not show up at the reception center. They may be able to be with friends and family. So we don't know if all people are going to show up at the reception center or not. We're going to maintain that reception center until we feel at such a time that working with the building owner that we've done an assessment enough to be able to say that we're confident that we've supported the residents.
Okay, thank you all.